On the field,
My name is George Hopkins, Director of the Cadets.
My name is Mark Sylvester, Show Program Coordinator.
I'd like to give to you, our fans, a bit of insight into what went into the production of the 2005 program, The Zone, Dreamscapes in 4 parts with Door. In October at our first staff meeting, it was clear the Cadets wished to move in a new direction. We did postseason surveys. The members were very, very interested in being on the edge. I think the phrase was they wanted to be like the old Cadets. And from a staff standpoint, we loved to have the crowd on our side, but we also were looking to take chances, try things that might not work, stretch the box, and overall spend a bit more time on concept and perhaps less time on doing what had been done by others and even by ourselves. The Zone was Mark's idea. I'll leave it to him to give you a brief summary of the general concept.
Okay, the story centers around Danny. She's our little 17-year-old Catholic schoolgirl. Like most teenagers, she's bored with school, tired of her parents and teachers and nuns telling her what to do. So one day at home after school, she's surfing the web and comes across this very cool site. It says, "Are you bored with life? Looking for a place to fulfill all your dreams? Come to The Zone, where dreams come true, 1313 Mockingbird Lane." The idea behind this whole introduction, core, the color guard, horn line, are The Zone. Everything is behind the door. Danny is still in the real world. That's why she's always front stage above the door. The whole idea of the double-sided costumes with the color guard and the horn line is to kind of just set the feeling up of what's real and what's not, what's up, what's down, this whole surreal world.
At mid-season, we rewrote a good portion of this opening musical feature to bring forward the Twilight Zone theme and even the voiceover. Our intention was to make the production more clear. Wanted people to know that this was not a statement of reality, or maybe it was. The Twilight Zone musical references just seemed to clarify what our intention was for a good many people.
The cool part with this section, this little what's happening here, is the whole crowd participation. Really started to almost become like a Rocky Horror thing where people just participated. We had this fun little soap opera chords as the door changes, and out comes the girl. And the idea is, we think she's going inside to this address, and really what happens is as she goes in the door, she actually enters this outside water world. And this whole production, based off of original music written by Bocook, where we went to him and said, look, we want all these, this music kind of like a movie, where you would write the music to the backdrop of all these water scenes of waves, which is what you're looking at now, waves and whirlpools and waterfalls, all these water images that the girl will basically be the main character. So what happens is the girl becomes less of the main role, and the zone, the place, is now what the show's about. So we just kind of went through the water scenes of waves, obviously the water flags that we spent a lot of time having digitally printed. This is kind of the section of the whirlpool. And then this falls right into the waterfall section. And that's basically what happens throughout all of this. Is this whole tune is these graphic images of water.
The waterfall led to our first actual drum corps hit. We waited probably 2 minutes purposely before we had our first impact. It was really, our intention was to make sure that the design of the show, the story of the show, was not lost inside of drum corps. And in fact, the brass percussion could wait their turn and then be given the opportunity when appropriate.
Okay, just a little side note, this section here, we catch a little bit of Danny doing choreography from Singing in the Rain. If you get a chance to watch the high cam view, this whole section behind the baritone solo is actually a water faucet with water sprinkling through. I think what was very interesting for me was kind of in coordinating, trying to get the ideas across, how many things the other designers brought to the table that really didn't talk about. Here's this umbrella that's coming up. These are all images, the water faucet, things that we never talked about that Jeff Sackdick, the drill designer, kind of just kept rolling with this. He really had a great time with coming up with all these images. Some of them we tried to do not so obviously or overtly, but almost subliminally. You don't catch it till afterwards. Another one here, the fish.
The tempos of this piece are almost not noticed by many people. We were at a 200 to 186, which is very, very fast, the entire piece. The demand on the players throughout the selection, especially for a first piece, out of the gate was extreme. Throughout the year, particularly when we were in places like Texas and well, even in Boston with the heat there, it was just a tough opening production.
So what happens is Danny leaves the water world. She sees the door. She goes through the door thinking she's going to leave and ends up in a new world. This is the fantasy world, why she's dressed as the fairy princess. And she comes into this chess world, basically, and based a little bit on the Alice in Wonderland of these live chess players. If you notice the images on the color guide costume, king and king are matched black and white, the queen and queen, again matched black and white, and all their entrances, left and right side of the field, are completely mirror image. One thing that was really interesting with the process of this, as Greg Lagola did, I thought, a brilliant job of writing the choreography, and Jonathan and Emma, Matt, and the color guard tech team, as they were teaching, they thought, wouldn't it be cool, since everything is mirror image, if half the color guard spun on the left hand and half spun on the right hand. So that ended up being a big part of this whole production. Now we're basically, this whole beginning is kind of choosing the sides, the entrance of all the chess pieces, working their way over to the next side of the field, where we're going to, Jeff sets up this whole chess match imagery. You know, we really did a lot of work on these flags. All the flags were kind of graphically done. It was a way of doing some kind of a surreal imagery of this chess world, a castle over a chessboard. And here's the beginning of the game. It's kind of the first place Danny realizes she can actually control her fantasy world. So you see her moving all the pieces. There's the pawn entrance, this whole chess match idea.
One of our first ideas when we heard the original material, the Björk tune, Dancer in the Dark, was the idea of a percussion section behind this gorgeous brass sound that was not in time, that it was a double time with a groove of its own, with a growth of its own. And the key to this was separation of the elements, where we could send the percussion all the way to the back side of the field, leaving the brass all the way to the front. The reason it worked is because the volume of the percussion line is eliminated, but the rhythm of the percussion line stays with you. So regardless your interest, if you're a percussionist, you're listening to the back. If you're a brass player, or probably most people in the stands, you're enjoying this great brass sound. And then right here in front of you, you have this tremendous completion to the phrase with a color guard. This was our favorite piece, I think, as a staff to put together. There's huge demands from a spatial standpoint, brass percussion, obviously. And just the artistry, I think, that went into trying to pull this all together was just really a joy to be a part of.
One thing we tried to always do was have these little moments of transition between each room, each zone that Danny enters. There was always this turnaround of the costume, the double-sided costume, so you got the sense of, always had that understanding of what's front and what's back, what's up, what's down. Now, Danny has entered the new room, Machine World, based off of a scene from Dance in the Dark by Björk, where she's this daydreamer. She always wanted to be in a Broadway play, so what we did is transfer that to our time. Danny's dream is to always be in a video. So this is kind of a rock-out video scene of this great choreography by Curtis Ullman and obviously Tommy Young's brilliant drum writing.
Tom did a great job of taking our direction, which was really just to come up with features such as this tom lick that sounded rhythmic, that were machine-like, yet we really left the rest to him. He did a great job of giving us what we wanted. This was almost a first take in terms of his production and his creation that came back in probably March or April.
Again, as I kind of said before, there was a great deal of direction to the whole show. But really, each writer, Jeff Sackett and Jay and Tommy, just brought stuff to it that he really didn't ask for. This whole fun little drum speak section was actually one of the good ideas George had this year, that we inserted right around spring training and took all year to figure out this whole electronic madhouse.
The vocal thing actually came, my only good idea, came from a business convention I was at where they had a gentleman doing drum speak to break things up between speakers. Sat there, wrote a note to myself, thinking, how could we possibly let this go by? Ran home, showed it to Mark, and we really started to put it into the show. A few days later, we actually used all the members to come up with the ideas. It took a while. We had some amplification flaws all year. If you had seen the Cadets early in the year, you were treated to some nasty problems. So it was a work in progress. It took a long, long time to bring this entire selection to the field.
Here's another, I think, for us was a very conscious effort in not doing the old cadet formula. So instead of ending the piece the way you think, kind of turns into this Vertigo Hitchcock scene. What's happening here, this piece is the introduction to False Mirror, another original piece by Bocook. What we're seeing is now all of these images that were created of Danny in the zone. So each one of these girls are basically a false image of the main character, Danny. This is all set up to have these great voicings and drill for this piece, what you see now.
You might recognize Barber's Medea within the melodies here. When we sat down in January, we actually tried to utilize Medea, but we only needed about 2 minutes. So rather than try to tear a tune apart, Jay decided that he would take on a second original piece, and he did a great, great job. The great thing about using original music is a lot of the transition material that you feel an obligation to use in an original piece, you can eliminate when you have your own writer right standing next to you. So trying to move to a block like this, we were able to get there on our own terms. It made it very, very easy for us to do what we wanted to do.
So now again, this whole piece, False Mirrors, you can see Danny on the right side of the field with the horn line, and then the three characters are on the other side of the field. This whole thing of this maze. Danny's trying to get out. She wants to get out of here. She's had enough of Fantasy World, and here she is, trapped in the zone, trapped in this maze. And this whole. Actually, one of the reasons we wanted to do Medea was because Medea herself, that character, is a surreal character in literature and in music. So now it's through all of this craziness in the music, and you see them going through the maze, and there she is back with all her images again.
Probably one segment we would do over again if we had a chance is we felt it was a bit long from that last arrival point to our final statement. However, the drill had been completed. It just wasn't a very good trade-off for us to have to rewrite 10, 15 pages of the drill to get where we needed to go. It just wasn't worth it. So we stuck with it. It's always one of those things you wish you had another shot at.
Now, one thing you might notice are the flags here, a little bit of image of the keyhole to the door, kind of tie in this hole. Here's the end of the show. And I think Jeff did, again, a great job of coordinate this whole show around the door. This whole ending is about focusing to the door, what's behind the door, what's going to happen, what'll be the next time she comes out. One thing we did was try to do at championships that each night she'd come out dressed as a different character. The idea being, is the show really over? If you notice, that's the same interior door. If the show was done, it would have been the exterior in Danny's Done. The fact that we left it this way is the open question. Is the show done? Is this the end of the zone?